I'm just a car guy. I love anything with engines. When I was 14 is when I saw the Fast and Furious. I literally had green underglow lights. I got pulled over that night by a state trooper for having green underglow lights. Second gear, that Saab would just... You know, my dad's like, hey, come here, check this out. Amazing, beautiful. It's painted orange like the General Lee. What's up, guys? It's Gary. So, I just wanted to, son of a bitch. What's up, guys? It's Gary. So, I got a comment, actually in the last video, and it, you know, I get like 99% positive comments on these videos, which is surprising, but I don't have that many views, so I guess it's not that surprising. And, yeah, somebody said, you know, it's kind of funny. They said, when are you going to have more exciting videos? I've been watching your videos. They made two comments. When are you going to have more exciting videos? And then the other comment was, I'm just asking because I've been watching your videos and they're not very exciting. Well, okay. I don't know how to respond. I mean, I did respond to it. And frankly, the thing is, there's a short answer to that, and it's when I have money. You know, I don't have any money to put into this channel. I really just try to put videos out based on nothing, based on what I own, little things here and there. I do these projects like these lawnmower projects back here, literally from junk that I have laying around. I have like almost no money into them at all. And frankly, I even stole parts off of one to build the other because the you can see I don't have the trailer wheels in the back of that one because I used the 5-lug hubs off of it to do this one, and until I get another set of hubs, it's one or the other kind of. But yeah, if you guys are new to the channel, there is quite a few videos on this. I didn't build it from scratch on this channel. It was kind of halfway already built, but I did a lot of work to it. This I call the hot rod tractor. This I refer to as the muscle mower. As you can see, it actually does mow lawns. It is a mower still. It used to be a Husqvarna 2148. I just did a couple little things to it to make it cooler. Put the axle out in front, the bigger tires on it. The axle out in front increases the wheelbase by like 10 inches. Really not done with it yet. I still want to do fenders and some other things. But then there are other projects that I haven't gotten to yet, and some of you guys are commenting, when are you going to finish that? When are you going to work on that? I know a lot of you guys that actually started watching because of the lawnmower stuff haven't really said anything, but this was my father's car. My father, who actually passed a few years back, so this is now up to me to finish, and it has not seen the road in over 20 years. Actually, it's probably not been on the road in well over 30 years, to be honest. But it hasn't even really driven besides down this driveway in like 20 years. Obviously it drove out of the carport to here, but that's as far as it's gone. And yeah, I got a lot of work to do on this. So just to kind of go over what I'm looking at here, well, it's a 76 Camaro, by the way, but just to give you the big idea as to what the main thing I needed to work on. It's been back halved, or at least it was started, and there's no floor or anything in here, and I have to actually redo some of what was done here already, some of the structural bits. Not too crazy, like it's all here, it's all straight, and it moves and everything like that, but this is a big job. And yeah, I don't have the money to put into it right now. I gotta get material, and I gotta do the floors. And as well as a bunch of other stuff. Well, not really that much. I mean, frankly, this thing's got like all new brake lines, brake parts. I have a new master cylinder to throw in it. So drivable, or driving wise, like functional chassis and everything like that, it's pretty close. And you know, it's another thing that I have to I have to make some time to get to. And of course, my newest deal here is my car, which is now just my daily driver. And I have a few plans with this as well, but I gotta admit, there was like no views and no interest on the videos I put out, probably just because my channel doesn't usually put out videos about stuff like that. And then of course, behind me, kind of what I started the channel with, what I call the medium duty muscle truck, 1985 Ford F8000 with a 3208 Caterpillar turbo. And I even have parts laid around for this that I want to get like some other stuff done on it. But what I'm really just here to tell you guys is there's not a whole lot going on my channel because I just don't have the money to put into the channel. You know, sometimes I'll kind of come up with something that costs nothing, like building that Husqvarna tractor cost me nothing. And like I said, I cheated and kind of stole some parts off of something else. And so the next project is on deck. And actually, kind of one of the reasons I put it off to the side is because I got kind of, well, I got to the point where I needed to buy some parts and I needed to pay bills at the same time. So I couldn't buy parts and I didn't end up getting those parts. So we are going to get back to this. I'm not going to go into detail as to what its final goal is, but as of right now, that is a Craftsman LT frame, just like those two. And that is a Murray frame at the back, extending it. And what I've been doing this weekend is cleaning out the shop, which was absolutely a mess. I mean, everything on this side and that side was just closing in on me. And then actually, I haven't even really fully cleaned it out. I've just kind of moved. I haven't finished, I should say. I've got a lot of stuff just moved right here, and I don't know where I'm going to put yet. 3 opposed twin engines, one of which might not even be good, but... and then we have in here, which I got to also clean out. And this is a freaking ridiculous mess as well. I got 2 motorcycles here as well that this used to be my daily ride about 5 years ago. It's an 84 Honda Magna V4. I do potentially want to take that down, strip it down, and actually do something with that engine because I really don't foresee riding that again. And then there's an old 84 Ironhead Sportster. Funny, they're actually both the same year, an 84 Honda Magna V30 and an 84 Ironhead Sportster. And again, there's probably more money than it's worth. You can get a rolling riding titled up one of these Sportsters for $1,500, and I'm not going to put the money into that to making a motorcycle for that reason alone. It needs everything. So take the engine off, build something cool out of it. That is something you guys could probably look forward to eventually this summer on the channel. So who am I? What's with all this junk? And how did I get here to where I am today? Well, how I got here where I am right now is actually, this was my family house that I grew up in. This was my family's, I grew up here. My mother and my father and I had a sister as well. And I have a sister. She lives out in Arizona. And, you know, over the years, I was working here and there, and I just never left the place. I was always living here still, working 5 miles away in town. And my father became sick a few years back. Frankly, at this point, it was quite a few years back that he first became sick. And then eventually, we found out that he had lung cancer. And you know, he passed now going on about 4 years ago. And, I mean, long story short is, now everything here is mine. And the things that already were mine, or the truck was mine, the tractors. This here was his. And this car, he's owned this car since before I was born. In fact, I found the original bill of sale. Handwritten bill of sale for this car from 1985. See, I said in a previous video, maybe even 2 different previous videos, that I thought he had owned this since 1980. It was 85. I was off by a little bit. And you think about it, this car was only, it's a 76, so it was only a 9-year-old car when he bought it. And I have a bunch of old pictures. One of these days, actually, maybe I'll try to gather some of those pictures up for when I work on this thing. Maybe we'll take a look at some of them. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at these days. Is I have what I have here, and I try to make what I can out of it. And I've always loved this car, and he loved it more than anything besides me, probably. And then, you know, it's really my goal to get this thing on the road this summer. To go further as to, you know, more about me is I'm just a car guy. I mean, to put it that simply, like, I love anything with engines. When I was a kid, my father, like I said, had this car, and this is what I grew up with, is, you know, a muscle car, going to car shows and stuff like that. And I had a go-kart probably when I was 10 years old, just a little one-wheel peel go-kart. But I actually had a mini bike before that, but I never ended up riding it. That was just some other silly thing. I think my mom actually told my dad, hey, do something to make that mini bike go away. Because my mom always hated motorcycles. And, you know, to make the mini bike go away, my dad actually, one day we filling up the new tire, and he just kept it filling up until it exploded. Like, literally. That. And I only looked back on that many years later and said, you know what? I think that was what he did. I think my mom told him, make that mini bike go away, and he popped the tire on purpose so that I could never ride it. And I don't even remember whatever happened to it after that. It just sat in the shed for years. And then I got a go-kart, though. And actually it was really cool, because I, of course, previously didn't have the mini bike going, and I think I was like 10 years old maybe, and I went to, maybe 10 or 12, probably 10, and I went to Florida with my mother to visit my grandma, and just her, and I don't know if my sister was there too, maybe not. And anyway, we get back from Florida. My dad didn't go. We get back. How the heck did that work anyway? Because we sure as hell, my mom sure as hell didn't drive down there. Oh, we took a train. Me and my mom, and probably my sister, took a train down to Florida, the Amtrak train. That's how we got there and got back. So when we got back, my mom wouldn't fly, I think, back then, and it was probably way more expensive. So we get back, and I come in. My dad's like, hey, come here, check this out. Brings me into the shed, and there's this amazing, beautiful. It's painted orange like the General Lee, like not literally like with General Lee graphics, but I mean it's the color orange. And at the time, and ever since I was a kid, Dukes of Hazzard, big fan of it. So this go-kart was like a life-changing experience. Showing me this go-kart, I couldn't believe it. And of course, blasting it up and down the driveway anytime I could, and all through until a couple years where it just kind of sat and didn't do anything. And then a few years later, when I was 14 years old, I actually resurrected it with my friends and brought it back out. And yeah, so those were the go-kart years. And at some point, I got a dirt bike that also never ran, and I didn't really know what to do with that. That was an old, like 80s Suzuki RM80. And that thing never ran. I did everything I could trying to start it, bump start it, and it just never. I look back later, and I think it just needed a top end, it needed rings and stuff like that, no compression. But ever since, I always just was into things with engines. Cars were my thing. Once I could drive, and even before that, I actually got my first car when I was 14, because my dad's friend, who he was reunited with at my Little League game. I was in Little League baseball all through the early years, up until pretty much the end of middle school. So 8th grade, going into 9th grade, once I was in 9th grade in high school, that's where I know different places are different, but here it was 8th grade was the end of middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then it was 9th grade through 12th. 9 through 12 was high school. And once I was in 9th grade, no more baseball. But anyway, I would have been about 14 years old in my last year of Little League, 8th grade, and I got my first car technically, which wasn't really so what happened was my dad met the guy, he knew him from when he was 20 years old basically, I think, and he ended up giving him a car. This guy, I got this Volkswagen Jetta. It was a Mark II Jetta, 1987. So I don't even remember how we got it. Oh, my dad drove it home. That's right. We went and picked it up at his house. My dad drove it back here. And I fell in love with that car. It was just supposed to be given to my dad. It was given to my dad, but I was the one who connected with it. And I don't know if my dad thought that from the beginning, I'm going to get this and it's going to be his. But it just turned into, man, I love that car. I want that car. And I was 14. And from 14 to 16, and even a little bit past there, I put a lot of work into that car to make it my own, make it cool. And never even actually drove it on my first day of getting my license to go to high school. I actually drove my dad's old 72 Chevy truck, which that actually became my daily driver for a few years. And even past that, it was always just my go-to vehicle, backup vehicle. My dad didn't even really drive it anymore at that point. It was like, you know, we used it as a truck when we needed it, but for the most part, it was my daily. And it was a 72 Chevy C30, 4-speed with a granny low, so basically 3-speed, and it had 456 rear gears. It was a Longhorn model, so it was it had actually an extra 6 inches. It's an 8.5-foot bed. 2-wheel drive, just a C30 2-wheel drive. Inline 6, 292 cubic inch. And I loved that truck too. But I never, like, at first couple of years of driving, that's what I drove. 16, 17 years old. Then by the time I was 18, I finally got the Jetta on the road. And it was like, I had just seen, when I was 14 is when I saw the Fast and the Furious. And the first movie came out, 14 years old, went to the theaters with my friends, and that movie made a big impact on me. To this day, besides like some of the classics like Smokey and the Bandit, The Fast and the Furious, the first one, is really my favorite movie of all time. And it really made an impact. I literally had green underglow lights on my Jetta. And the first time I drove it, first time out of the driveway into town with my friend, fully registered and ready to go, I got pulled over that night by a state trooper for having green underglow lights. And, you know, he said you can't have that when you're driving. Nowadays, you see people driving with shit like that. No, I don't think people get pulled over for it anymore, really. But it was frowned upon, and it immediately got me pulled over. So, you know, go from the Mark II Jetta. I only drove that car for maybe 6 months until I saw another friend of mine pull into the car wash, which back then the car wash, that was like the hangout spot for all of us car people. Right in town, 5 miles away from here. The car wash was the spot. And later on it would be like McDonald's parking lot. There was always different spots. But like for the most part, it was the car wash. And not to mention, of course, the Friday night gathering out in Middletown, but that's a whole nother story I can get into another time. So my friend pulls in, and he's got a 1988 BMW 528E, which is an E28 chassis, 5 Series, you know, and it just looked incredible. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I think I'd seen, you know, 80s BMWs, but it just made an impact on me right away, and I'm like, I gotta have that car. And he had a for sale sign in it, of course, and I think he wanted $800 for it. So I immediately put my Jetta up for sale, sold it for $1,000, and bought the BMW for $800. And at the time, I didn't even know about negotiating, and it was my friend, and I just, $800, here you go. Probably could have got it for $500, but ultimately, that was my car for another maybe 6 months or a year or so, and not even a year really, because I was still, I want to say 18, maybe just turning 19 when I got my first Fox body. So that was where everything really changed, because I went from these ultra slow, also the BMW, by the way, was an automatic. I went from the 5-speed Volkswagen Jetta to an automatic BMW, just because the BMW was rear-wheel drive, inline 6. It was way cooler looking. It was ultimately a BMW. Like, at the time, it was still freaking awesome. They weren't really worth anything back then. I mean, obviously I got it for $800. Now they're quite a bit more valuable. You know, like basically what I had would now be $5,000 instead of 500 or 800. And shoot, even the Mark II Jettas, you know, they were like they had no value back then, and now, you know, a crappy one is like $2,500. So I get rid of the the BMW then goes to my father, and he just daily drives that. He was always bouncing between different cars too. He had, when I was really young, like, we didn't even live here. I was in, you know, the kindergarten years, like elementary school years. He had actually, frankly, probably before that, he had a 76 Nova 4-door. Again, those cars were just, even now a 4-door is not worth anything, but like back then it wasn't that he had a cool car, it was just a regular used car. So he had a blue 76 Nova, I think it had a 305 in it. I only know that from years later when he told me. Then he got, you know, I don't remember exactly every car, but at one point he had like some 5-speed Subaru from the 80s. He had a Dodge pickup, like a 70 something, 72 I want to say, Dodge pickup. All these cars, they didn't last long. The 72 Dodge pickup, the wiring harness under the dash all burned up, so it went to the junkyard. The Subaru, the clutch went out, so it went to the junkyard, I think. Then eventually he got one of the greatest cars, like, was an 80 Toyota Corolla station wagon, you know, rear-wheel drive, 1980 Toyota Corolla station wagon. That thing was cool. Then that also was that was his. Then it went to my mom. And then he had a Volkswagen. Around the same time that I had the Volkswagen, also he had a Volkswagen Fox, Volkswagen Fox 2-door wagon, 5-speed, of course, actually 4-speed. That thing was awesome. But anyway, he had all these different cars. So at one point, I gave him the BMW, and I spotted this Fox body Mustang, a hatchback original 5.0, right up the road from here. And it was a little bit rusty. The hatch was completely rusted out. It had, like, one of the front fenders was completely rusted out. And frankly, it seemed otherwise pretty clean. And that was my car for a while, and I loved that car. That was incredible. I went to the drag strip for the first time ever in that car. And I did a little bit of work here and there to it. It came with Flowmasters all the way out the back, but so it was already, you know, it sounded great. And over the years, I did a few things to it until it actually, the rust really did. I had changed the hatch to a non-rusty hatch. I never did change the fender. And over the years, it just got rusty underneath. Like, it had been rotting out underneath. And the front frame rails under the shock towers completely rotted out. But mainly the rear suspension rotted out, where the control arms go. So that car ended up ultimately becoming really pretty much junk. And I did a little bit of patchwork to fix it up, but it wasn't that much longer where I just said I have to get another one. So I ended up getting a 4-cylinder notchback to replace that car, put all the drivetrain from that car into the 4-cylinder, except for the engine. I actually had a different engine that I put in there, but this is again another story. I can get into it another time. But yeah, those were the two greatest cars I had. Were well, maybe not. The Fox bodies were kind of my thing. I had my most recent Fox body I had for, I want to say, 11 years before selling it. And I actually spent like 2 years just building it from the ground up. Like, I spent 2 years doing everything to it, having every part off of it, rear end out of it. Well, it had a 7.5 rear end originally because it's a 4-cylinder, so I put the 8.8 into it, and I didn't initially do that. I was running it around V8 with the 7.5. So I put the 8.8 in it, rebuilt the diff, all new suspension, everything was new. I put a GT40P engine from an Explorer in it with the stock Mustang cam into it. It was all just complete, and it was fast. It ended up actually being really quick. 373 gears, 5-speed, of course, you know, manual. And then I sold it like not too long after I finished it, a couple years after I finished it. It wasn't really finished, but you know what I mean. It still needed a little bit of things here and there. And but going back even before that car, you know, the European cars, I've always loved these old European cars. I had the Jetta and then I had the BMW. So the next thing I had that was European that I had at the same time I had the Fox body was a 1987 Saab 900 SPG. And so the Saab 900 Classic, the original Saab 900. And if you don't know about the SPG, that was Special Performance Group, which ultimately that was the top of the line car at the time from Saab. It was 175 horsepower. The regular turbo I think was 165, so it wasn't a huge difference, but 175 horsepower in I think it was around 2,800 pound Saab 900. It's front wheel drive, 5-speed. That was a fast car, and it's turbocharged horsepower. And I always say there's this thing that I like to refer to as the turbo illusion, and or the illusion of power from boost. And I don't know what it was, but that car felt every bit as fast as the Mustang at the time. And it's the way that turbo rushes on, and it would just roast tires in second, rolling into throttle second gear. That Saab would just pick the front end up and just be spinning, and it was fast. You know, by today's standards, it wouldn't be fast, but it was a quick car. It was certainly fast in its day, and it was fast for me when I owned it, like over 10 years ago. And you know, so that's kind of that's where I'm at. Oh, and motorcycles, you see I had the motorcycle in there. I've never really been a motorcycle person. It's just that one year my friend's dad actually had somebody he knew who had that Honda Magna for free. And I can't pass up a free motorcycle. And at the time, my friend who had the dad who had the free motorcycle, he was a motorcycle guy. Both him and his father had motorcycles. His father had a Harley and an old Triumph. And then my friend had like dirt bikes, and then at the time he got like a Triumph Speed Triple. And so they were hardcore motorcycle people. And I just figured I had to join in. I needed a motorcycle. And even like shortly before that, I didn't care at all about motorcycles. I used to always just say, motorcycles are all the same. I've more recently become less interested in motorcycles yet again. But for a little while there, I built that motorcycle back up from dead. Like, it was sitting under somebody's back deck for years. It had 600 original miles on it. And I ended up putting a new set of a used set of carburetors on it. Not because I couldn't rebuild the other ones, but because the other ones were physically, like, corroded so bad you really couldn't rebuild them. So I got a used set of carburetors. I put a different set of forks on it from a Shadow, which mainly because I couldn't find Magna forks because they were all pitted. Lowered the front end a little bit, built a custom fender. One day I'm going to pull it out at some point and get it back running, and we'll talk about some of that that I did to that. But like I said, I've never really been that into motorcycles. But once I got into them, I was into them, and I was into that one. I didn't really have any other ones. That was the one I had, and that was it. And I daily rode that for years. I don't know, a few years. I just literally had no vehicle other than that 72 Chevy I would occasionally drive if it was snow, like winter or whatever. But I even rode the motorcycle in the winter, 20, 30 degree weather. I was on that motorcycle going to where I needed to go, going to work, and what have you. And yeah, I'm losing my own train of thought here and losing my story, because my story is just kind of never ending, and there's a lot of parts to it that I don't even know that I got to. But yeah, this was not exciting. So to, prove that comment correct, there's no exciting things going on here right now. I really hate to skip a video. I don't like to not put a video out on a Sunday, so this is the video. Oh yeah, and I also had a Miata, which if you look at some of the earlier videos from like last year, you could see the Miata sitting here. And I ended up selling that. So I sold the Mustang, I sold the Miata, ended up getting that W210 Mercedes just as a daily, which it just was so boring, that car, that I had to trade it for that. So now I'm really happy I got what I think is an amazing car, a cool car, and it does get looks. It's so fun to drive. I love the sound of that engine, and I do have plans for that thing. Nothing crazy. I'm gonna put probably gonna straight pipe it. I might do a dual mode exhaust where I can actually switch it, like basically a valved exhaust, so it has a muffler and it has a straight pipe, because it actually is really nice to drive with just a quiet stock exhaust. I've come to appreciate that over the years. I've always had loud cars. Every car I've had has had some sort of exhaust. Even my Jeep Grand Cherokee had a glass pack basically out the back. That was more or less because the exhaust rotted off, and it was just the way to go, right? I just was like, let me get this good sounding exhaust. But it is sometimes really nice to just have a quiet exhaust. But that's probably not even going to be, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get any attention on the videos with that, so I don't know if I'm even going to do any videos on that. That's the other hard thing, is that I have things to do that, like, I got to get that freaking crappy Cobalt over there together so I can get it either sold or use it as a daily driver. But I'm not going to be able to put videos out of doing that because I don't think they're going to get any views. You guys want to see me build tractors and lawnmowers and maybe even get this thing going, not put an engine in a Cobalt, and I don't want to watch that either. I don't want to do a video on it. But it's hard to get that done because I have the time to get a video done, right? I don't have the time to get everything I need to get done and make a video. And of course, this weekend I didn't really get any work done on anything, so I don't want to get you guys hopes up on what the next video is, or even shoot myself in the foot on what the next video is, but I'm going to say that I really want to do something with this next weekend, or by next weekend the video will hopefully be something with this. Like I said, I got the carburetor kits, I got the master cylinder, and there's still no floor in the back, and there ain't going to be a floor in the back for a little while. I got to get the materials to start doing that. But I would like to, at the very least, I got to get this thing fired up and move it a little bit, because I do want to trim up the grass right here. But yeah, I'm just looking at this car every day I come out here, and I just really, really want to get something done on this thing. I love this car, you know, as much or more than my father did. And you know, it's not going to, unless I really have some serious money, it's never going to be like truly nice. And I like old patinaed out, ratty muscle cars, or a lot of different types of vehicles. I like that kind of look. I think this looks badass with this just flat, worn out paint on it. This was actually primer. It wasn't the original paint. You know, he primed this years ago. And what I'm getting at is, it's not going to look like a beautiful black shiny gem anytime soon, but I want to get it running down the road, do burnouts with it, have a good time, go out to car shows. When I say car shows, I mainly just mean like see if there's the Friday night gathering. Probably not. It's all trucks now. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not like when I grew up with it. But yeah, so should I stop rambling now and end this video here? Thank you to everyone who's subscribed up to this point, and sorry if this isn't exactly what you subscribed for. On the other hand, if you like story time and you like hearing about you know, hearing me just talk and ramble on, that's a whole nother you know, put it down in the comments. I like telling stories, I like talking about things, and if you know, I envy Uncle Tony's garage. I envy Uncle Tony because he like doesn't actually in his videos work on anything. He gets everything done off camera, and then he puts the video together where he's just sort of like, here's what's going on, here's what I did, and you know what, I ran into an issue with this. But he also does really good technical information. You know, he'll have some good like information, good I want to say how-tos, but I don't know if you'd really call it a how-to. But he has very good videos that are informative. But he also has videos where he's just sort of like recapping what he did, or showing what he's going to do. And I love that. I really envy him for being able to do that. You know, my videos, I've tried doing that in some of the builds on the tractor, or some of the build videos from the old tractor. I did a video or two like that. And back then I just wasn't getting a lot of attention anyway. So I don't know. I don't know when to stop talking either. So thank you guys who are subscribed. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe. Look at some of my old videos in my catalog of videos, and then it'll help you understand what I normally do around here besides talk. If you like the video, hit the like button. Even if you don't, do it anyway. Try it. If you don't like what you're seeing, comment down below, tell me you don't like it. If you do like it, comment down below and tell me. If you think this is boring, if you think this is not exciting, if you think this is great and you love hearing stories and you also want to see me build more tractors, go ahead and comment down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.